Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today. So let's start off talking about Karrion Kross. I mean, I can't even get through that sentence without laughing, which I think says a lot about what Karrion Kross actually looks like right now on Monday Night RAW. Now, Karrion Kross, of course, lost the NXT Championship this past weekend at NXT TakeOver 36. Was expected. No one didn't think that Karrion Kross wasn't going to drop the NXT Championship to Samoa Joe. That was a formality considering Karrion Kross was already on Monday Night Raw. The interesting thing about Karrion Kross losing the NXT Championship this past weekend, of course, was what was it going to mean for Karrion Kross on Raw now? Kross is now fully on the main roster. He's no longer a part of NXT. He's fully in the hands of Vince McMahon and his genius creative team on Monday Night Raw. So what are we going to get? We're going to get the same of what we've been seeing with Kross on Monday nights. We're going to see something a little bit different. We're going to see a little bit of character evolution. What are we going to see? And we did see something different. And my, oh my, what we saw. Karrion Kross right now could be the case study for anyone as to why not to sign with WWE. Forget being released. Forget budget cuts. Forget the politics, forget the scripted promos, forget the overproduced segments, forget the overproduced matches. Yes, you have things going for you. Yes, you can go and travel the world. Yes, you can get paid well. Yes, you can perform at WrestleMania, compete in a Royal Rumble match. But this could be you. This could be you. You go from someone that when they debuted as part of the NXT roster, didn't lose for like 18 months, was undefeated, NXT champion, beat everyone. Whether it was Adam Cole, whether it's Finn Balor, Keith Lee, the list goes on and on. All of these names they defeated. Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, Damian Priest, Pete Dunne. Everyone with a bit of name recognition in NXT has been defeated by Karrion Kross, and it's just vanished. Poof, it's gone. Losses to Jeff Hardy in 100 seconds, losses to Keith Lee, which I know subsequently he then beat Jeff Hardy, and he then beat Keith Lee, but now he looks like this. The Sultan mixed with Demolition, mixed with Lord Tensai, mixed with, I don't know, some weird shop that you're not allowed to go into unless you're over 18. It's just bizarre. Now, Karrion Kross returned to the ring last night on the post-SummerSlam edition of Monday Night Raw from San Diego. One night, of course, after losing the NXT Championship to Samoa Joe at TakeOver 36. Raw saw Kross squash Ricochet in a fairly quick match. Another case study of why not to side with WWE. Ricochet, remember when Ricochet was like a thing? Ricochet felt like a big deal. Ricochet felt like someone that, this could be the next Rey Mysterio in WWE. This is the next great high flyer. Look at the things he can do. Look at him now, losing to the Sultan in about 100 seconds on Monday Night Raw. This was a guy that was NXT North American Champion, United States Champion. He wrestled Brock Lesnar, for what that's worth, and that ended very well. Now, Ricochet got some offense in, but Kross dominated and quickly put him away with the Doomsday Suplex and the Cross Jacket Submission. It looks like the suplex is no longer being called the Doomsday Saito Suplex, just the Doomsday Suplex. So, like everything, once you get to the main roster, it's been shortened a little bit. Now, the biggest news coming out of the match, though, and it's the reason why it's our headline story today, is how Kross came to the ring wearing a new... some people are saying it's a gladiator mask, I guess. A gladiator mask. He removed the mask before the bell rang. He's also wearing new in-ring attire to go with the gladiator mask. As you can see, he's got suspenders on. It just looks horrible. It just looks horrible. It's one of those things that the moment he came out last night on Raw, he immediately was trending on Twitter for all the wrong reasons. All the wrong reasons. And this is one of those situations, again, where I think back to the Revival when they left WWE and those images of them, of the concept art of their new gimmick with the lipstick and the glow sticks and the Flavor Flav clock and the bow ties that they had on, which you look at and you go, that is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. I think back to Lars Sullivan, and don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating for Lars Sullivan to come back anytime soon, but I think about Lars Sullivan when he was let go from WWE. He asked to be let go, but once he was let go, and he posted on Instagram I can't remember the actual nickname, but he was going to be called Lawrence Sullivan, and he was going to wear a top hat and wear a long coat and wear a monocle like an English gentleman because he was going to be smart, he was going to be sophisticated. And now Karrion Kross, again, looking like something, the Sultan mixed with Demolition, mixed with, I don't know. But I've been saying this over and over and over and over and over again when it comes to WWE for years now. But it feels like what you're watching on Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown, legitimately, it feels like we're in this time warp where for some reason we're in 1995. It really is. There are so many gimmicks now. Nikki Ash, she's a superhero, almost a superhero. Karrion Kross, who's now a gladiator. We had Shorty G before. We have, again, they wanted to do the revival and that gimmick. They wanted to do that Lawrence Sullivan thing. All of these kind of stuff. It's so like 1995. And the crazy thing is that they couldn't get away with it in 1995 because they had legitimate competition. Legitimate competition in WCW that was competing in terms of taking money away from them because WCW was on a level footing. At this point, because WWE is so well established and so big, and they've got these contracts with Fox that's worth $1 billion, NBC Universal for Raw that's worth $1 billion, NBC Universal with Peacock that's $1 billion, the Saudi deal that they have to do the shows over in Saudi Arabia, they're returning in October. They've just signed a new agreement with Spotify or one of the studios of Spotify to do these podcasts, new original series, all this kind of stuff. And they're a publicly traded company, of course, so there's money that comes with that. I've mentioned this before, the content no longer matters. The content no longer matters because they've got these big TV deals, they've got these big contracts, that's money already in the pocket. So it's not that they can get away with doing this stuff because it's objectively bad, but they'll do it and they don't care that it's bad. And again, it's like being in 1995. Now, I mentioned that they didn't have they don't have serious competition right now, which is why they can get away with it. Obviously, people are going to say, well, so you're saying AEW isn't competition? As much as Vince McMahon says it isn't, AEW, of course, is competition. Right now, though, AEW can't necessarily hurt WWE in terms of the bottom line. They can't. Give it 2 or 3 years when these television contracts start to run out and start to expire, that's when they might have a problem. Because if the ratings and the viewership continues to go down and AEW's continue to rise, when it comes to renegotiating these television contracts, either AEW is going to make a load of money or WWE is going to make less money. Because the television networks, rightfully so, will say, well, wait a minute, AEW on Wednesday nights is doing just as good as you or nearly as good as you, and they're paid far less. So either we pay them more or we're paying you less because you're not delivering. But as of right now, this is just another case study, like I said, of why not to go to WWE, or that they just can't be trusted. The main roster, that creative team just can't be trusted. In what lifetime is this gimmick going to get over? Where you see it originally and you say, it's not good. That is bad. That is a bad mask. That is a bad ring attire. It's a bad gimmick. And it just feels like when you see these things, like this Karrion Kross thing, or like Shorty G, or like whatever, when they come out with these gimmicks, immediately, you know in like 2 or 3 years' time, you're going to see this documentary on Peacock or the network where Karrion Kross and all of these creative and executives are going to go, yeah, it was bad. We knew it was bad. Then why did you do it? Why are we going to see in 3 or 4 years' time Bruce Pritchard do his podcast and they're going to talk about Karrion Kross, and Conrad Thompson will say, Bruce, why did you have him come out in this stupid mask? And he will say, I don't know, it was terrible. Then why did you do it? Everyone knows at the time it's bad. And people will say, well, Bray Wyatt came out and you didn't have this reaction because it just takes one look. You only get one chance to make one good first impression. Karrion Kross has had about 3. He lost his first one. This is another first impression and it's bad as well. When you saw Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, come out for the first time, you went, that's cool. You didn't have that last night. And it's just continuously bizarre character stuff and bizarre booking and just bizarre presentation of stuff, and I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Now, Kross won, and you're going to be saying, or certain people that are WWE loyalists or defenders will be saying, wow, you were complaining when Kross lost, now you're complaining when Kross won, because this isn't the Karrion Kross that people have emotionally invested in with NXT, and I know NXT isn't even NXT anymore, so why should we get attached to it or its characters, but this is just, it's so 1990s, 1980s, it's so outdated and just bad, just really, really bad. And look, like I said, at the moment, it doesn't matter to WWE because their content doesn't matter. They've got the money in the pockets already, but give it a couple of years and they can't do this forever. And they were doing this in the 1990s and they were forced to change because they were being beaten. And they're not going to be beaten for a while. But maybe the best thing for WWE is to actually start to have these television companies and some of their contracts going, you know what, we're going to go to the other company because your product sucks. Because Raw sucks. Objectively, it does. There are bright spots on that show, and there are things that you go, that was a good segment. But in terms of a show, it's just a bad show. And that's just another case. I mean, at this point, I'm not even that outraged when it comes to Karrion Kross anymore, because they've done everything possible just to try and, in their mind, build him up. But in reality, it's just absolutely just ripped him apart and just ripped him apart. It's not, you can't even be angry almost anymore. You're just disappointed. Let's talk about SmackDown. SmackDown, of course, the bigger show in WWE nowadays because of Fox. And WWE is teasing that Brock Lesnar and new SmackDown Women's Champion Becky Lynch will appear on Friday's post-SummerSlam edition of SmackDown on Fox. While officially not announced as of recording right now, a new promo for Friday's SmackDown teases. We'll find out what's next for the Man and the Beast. Two returns shock the world. The voiceover begins this Friday. The Man came back and reclaimed her place at the top. What's next for SmackDown's new Women's Champion? Plus, the Beast is back with his focus set on the head of the table. Does destruction await the Universal Champion? Now, they haven't been officially, of course, as I mentioned, announced for the show, but they're going to be there. Now, this would be Brock Lesnar's first appearance on SmackDown since November 1st, 2019. He has obviously not appeared on that show since he quit SmackDown and moved to Raw whilst he was WWE Champion. When it comes to Becky Lynch, she's not appeared on SmackDown since the October 4, 2019 episode, which of course was the debut episode of SmackDown on Fox, where she appeared with The Rock. So it would appear that Lesnar and Lynch are both now officially on SmackDown, because SmackDown is the A show, so I guess that's where the A talent goes. It's interesting, of course, when it comes to both stars. Brock Lesnar is reportedly playing a babyface in opposition to Roman Reigns' heel character. It's going to be interesting, certainly, when it comes to Lesnar in opposition to maybe Paul Heyman. Where does Paul Heyman's allegiances lie? I know, obviously, we've seen Lesnar and Reigns a million different times. But in fairness, this is a completely different scenario. It's a completely different setting. Roman Reigns is completely different. We haven't seen Brock in about 18 months. He does feel fresh. And it does feel like a big match. The shame is, of course, that it's going to be happening at Crown Jewel in October. Realistically, that's why Brock is back, because they've got that big Crown Jewel show. They've got a load of money. Suddenly, Brock Lesnar's contract becomes financially viable when they know they've got this big incoming of funds from Saudi for that show. So that's the reality when it comes to Lesnar. The Becky Lynch stuff, obviously the report came out yesterday that Becky Lynch is indeed going to be a heel going forward in WWE now, which to me does feel very odd. I'll be honest with you, it does feel very odd. I don't know if it's a case of WWE looking at the success that they've had with Roman Reigns and saying, you know what, we shouldn't be so opposed to turning people into heels, our top stars into heels. Maybe that's the way to go. And I do credit them for that. But it doesn't feel like the right time. Roman Reigns, the character felt stale. Whilst he was a big star, the character felt stale and he needed something to be fresh. I'm not going to say he wasn't over as a babyface, because he obviously was if you want to look at certain metrics, but it felt needed for him to turn heel, do something different. I don't know if that's the case with Becky Lynch. Roman Reigns was away for a couple of months last year. Obviously, he skipped out of WrestleMania because of concerns with the pandemic, but he came back and he went with something different. That felt needed. The Becky Lynch heel turn right now doesn't feel needed. She is still over and super popular. She's been away for about 18 months as well, due to obviously giving birth and being on maternity leave, etc. And there was this outpouring and want for her to come back, but wanting her to come back as a babyface. She's going to come back Friday, and the reaction she's going to get is massive. It's going to be a babyface reaction. And going forward, it kind of feels like the same mistakes of the past are going to be repeated. Remember SummerSlam 2018? Becky Lynch was turned heel against Charlotte Flair, and it was so badly executed, or that just the fans didn't want to boo Becky Lynch, and eventually they had to turn her babyface. It kind of feels like the same right now. If she's going to be in opposition to Bianca Belair, I see Bianca Belair being booed and not Becky Lynch, to be honest with you. Now maybe, just maybe, WWE might have executed it well by having this feeling that she squashed Belair at SummerSlam and it was 30 seconds and Bianca Belair was mistreated, because what gets a talent over as a babyface and what gets a heel over as a heel is the office being behind them and corporately someone being pushed. Maybe that's the right way to do it. Maybe it's smart. But I don't know about Becky Lynch turning into a heel. Maybe in a couple of months' time, once the shine's worn off of her returning. But right now, right out of the gate, I don't know. I honestly don't know about that one. Let's go back to Monday Night Raw last night and let's talk about Doudrop and Eva Marie splitting up. Who cares, to be honest with you? But Eva Marie and Doudrop are no more, and Doudrop will be keeping her name. This week's post-SummerSlam edition of Monday Night Raw saw Eva Marie attack Doudrop and beats her up backstage. It was then announced that Eva Marie and Doudrop will take place during next Monday's Raw. honestly, who cares? Honestly, seriously, who cares? Now, last night on Raw, Zara Schreiber interviewed Doudrop backstage and asked what happened at SummerSlam. She admitted she made a mistake associating herself with Eva in the first place. The former Piper Niven said she now likes the name Doudrop, and that's who she is now. This is what she said, quote, "First of all, I made a mistake associating myself with Eva Marie. She helped me get my foot in the door here at Monday Night Raw, but I didn't sign up to get spoken down to and treated like I'm worthless. She thought she'd put me down by giving me the name Doudrop. Well, I like that name. That's who I am now. I'm Doudrop. And the next time I see Eva Marie, I'm going to Doudrop her. I'm going to make Eva Marie feel like how she tried to make me." Eva Marie then attacked Doudrop and ranted about how disrespectful and ungrateful she was. And then Doudrop got up and called her a female dog, if you know what that means, to end the segment. Like I said, I'm not even going to analyze it that much. Who cares? I'm glad that Piper Niven's being a single star now, and she's a babyface. She's very likable, and I think people want to cheer for her. But the whole Eva Marie thing, that match was horrible. That match was absolutely horrible at SummerSlam. There were two really bad matches on that show. Of course, one was Goldberg-Lashley, but you can almost understand why it was on a show, because it's Goldberg at the end of the day, I guess. But the Eva Marie Alexa Bliss one, it was horrific, absolutely horrific, and I just don't care for it. I don't think anyone does, apart from obviously the people that write the show, which is a bit of a problem. Anyway, let's move on. Kofi Kingston reportedly is not cleared to compete right now. Some people were asking where Kofi Kingston has been, and it's because he's reportedly not cleared for action right now. Now, Kingston was originally scheduled to be part of the SummerSlam Pure Life Water segment with The Miz, John Morrison, and Xavier Woods, but that did not happen, as he was not on the road for the company this past weekend. PW Insider is reporting that multiple sources are saying Kingston is not currently cleared to perform. Kingston last wrestled in the Raw Dark Match main event on August 17, the SummerSlam Go Home episode, as he and Woods defeated The Miz and John Morrison. He did appear on last week's Raw broadcast in a backstage segment with Woods, Miz, and Morrison, which was done to set up the Pure Life segment at SummerSlam, but Kingston has not wrestled on WWE television since the loss to Bobby Lashley at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view on July 18. Now, there's no word yet on why he's not cleared, what the injury may be, but obviously once we find out more about it, we'll talk about it here on the channel. But fingers crossed it's nothing too serious and Kofi Kingston will be back soon. It must be said, though, that whole Pure Life Water segment at SummerSlam, again, talking about things that were awful. I like Xavier Woods. I like the Razor Ramon cosplay. I'm a big Scott Hall fan, but that segment, objectively as well, had no business being on pay-per-view. It was absolutely horrible. Yes, it did set up the turn on Monday Night Raw last night, and we'll get into that in a second, but man, it was bad as well. It was just horrible. Speaking of things that actually aren't horrible right now, it's the Baron Corbin storyline. I'm a big fan. I am a big fan of this storyline. Obviously, we knew that Happy Corbin was trademarked a few months ago, and we might be seeing where that's coming to right now, because there is a storyline twist coming soon for Baron Corbin, according to a report by PW Insider. According to the report, WWE apparently filmed a lot of content with Corbin in Las Vegas over the weekend. Now, Corbin's been posting videos and photos on social media, noting that his luck has turned around in Vegas after he made a fortune while gambling. The report added that the Corbin Vegas deal will be a social media storyline that will play out a week before SmackDown, at which point there'll be some sort of twist to the story. Now, earlier on Sunday, PW Insider also reported that there were plans at one point to film content with the illusionist Chris Angel in Vegas. However, there's no confirmation if Corbin did indeed film that content with Angel. Now, as noted, Corbin was dissed by Logan Paul at SummerSlam after he lost to Big E on the kickoff show. Who cares? Seriously, who cares about that? We won't talk about Logan Paul. I know he was on Raw last night, but again, who cares? Again, I've really liked the Baron Corbin storyline, which is crazy for me to say. It's crazy to say that Baron Corbin arguably has been one of the best things on WWE television over the course of the last few months. The down in his luck and destitute version of Corbin has been very well done, it must be said. I've been a fan of it. But in fairness, it can only last so long. WWE has a really bad habit of things that are funny or things that are entertaining, just running them into a ground. If something organically is funny or makes people laugh, they will do it over and over and over and over again until that point it's not funny anymore. Whether it's Titus O'Neil falling over or Nia Jax saying "my hole," all that kind of stuff, they just play it into the ground. Mandy Rose falling over. They can't do humor. But when it comes to this Baron Corbin thing, it must be said, credit where credit's due, it's been done very well. But it can't last forever. So I'm all for a bit of character evolution. It's a legitimate... That's how low the bar is at this point for WWE nowadays. It's just a normal story arc. someone that had a load of money, had a crown, all that kind of stuff, loses it, keeps going further and further into bankruptcy and destitution, loses everything, stuff gets repossessed, tries to do a GoFundMe, appears more and more just, hair grown out, big beard, t-shirt, stuff on the t-shirt, stains, all that kind of stuff. And then he gets lucky, wins a load of money gambling in Vegas, and suddenly gets more wealthy and becomes a happy Corbin. That's a legitimate story arc. And that's so rare. That's so rare nowadays in WWE. Something that actually makes a little bit of sense. So I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Good for Baron Corbin. Now, I mentioned last night on Raw we saw a big turn that included The Miz turning on John Morrison. That's the second time this has happened, by the way. It happened at the draft in 2009. The Miz was the one to turn on John Morrison, but The Miz and Morrison are no more. After weeks of tension between the former WWE Tag Team Champions, the post-SummerSlam edition of Raw saw The Miz snap and turn on Morrison, leaving him laying. Now, the segment began with Logan Paul coming out for a moist TV segment with Morrison. Miz eventually came out and wasn't happy how Morrison didn't introduce him. Miz and Morrison ended up arguing as Paul left, and Xavier Woods came out to interrupt them. Miz then faced Woods in singles action, whilst Morrison supported him from ringside. Morrison tried to interfere a few times during the match, but this backfired and Woods got the victory. After the match, Morrison apologized and said it was an accident and continued joking around to try and smooth things over with his longtime friend. But The Miz snapped and attacked Morrison as fans booed the turn. Miz ended up putting Morrison back down with a skull-crushing finale as the boos got louder. Now, obviously WWE, you would think, what's the right thing to do? Extreme Rules is in September, let's build to a Miz and Morrison match. No. Miz and Morrison will take place during next week's Monday Night Raw, as Morrison was featured in a backstage segment where he said he'll put an end to the partnership as he gets that SOB in the ring next week. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they did actually stretch this out to Extreme Rules. That would make sense, right? Let's not rush into things here. When it comes to them splitting up, I know a lot of people like Miz and Morrison. They obviously have a ton of chemistry. Legitimately, they are real-life friends. But I think it's been enough time. A lot of people, myself included, have said and seen John Morrison's work outside of WWE, what he's capable of. He's capable of being in the main event. The only thing that hurt John Morrison in the past was his promos, which I do think are a lot better nowadays. And look, he's in his 40s. It's now or never when it comes to John Morrison. And I've been saying for a while, split them up. The Miz is an excellent upper mid-card heel. Maybe not as WWE champion. We saw that earlier this year. That time's passed. But he is definitely worth having as a single star in that upper mid-card heel role. John Morrison can be a top-tier babyface. He absolutely can. We've seen it on the independent scene. And I think those in WWE have started to see it as well. Raw is just desperate and in dire need of new top babyface stars. Damian Priest is probably going to be challenging Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship. Why can't John Morrison be in there as well? I think he can. I truly think he can. So I'm not against the move at all. I hope it actually leads to Frankie Monet coming to the main roster as well, and John Morrison and the former Ty Valkyrie real-life husband and wife team up as well. I've been wanting to see that for a while, so I thought the segment was well done, and I'm all for John Morrison being pushed as a single star. Finally, we have some interesting information about the relationship between WWE and 2K reportedly being strained over WWE 2K22. Now, this past weekend, WWE unveiled the trailer for their upcoming video game WWE 2K22, developed by 2K Sports. It would only take a day for the good news to be overshadowed by news that isn't all that good between the wrestling giant and the online video game publisher. Now, according to video game website Sports Gamer Online, 2K Sports and WWE 2K22 developer Visual Concepts have been butting heads with WWE over several factors in the game's development, straining the relationship between the two. The main cause for the tension appears to be over the release date of WWE 2K22. The report claims that WWE pushed for the game to be released in the fall of 2021, as previous games had been, while 2K and Visual Concepts pushed for the delay into the spring, which they ultimately received. Sports Game Online further reported that the main reason for 2K and Visual Concepts sought the delay was to work around WWE's numerous roster cuts. The promotion has released at least 46 wrestlers in 2021, several of them scheduled to be in WWE 2K22. Sources told Sports Game Online that the game was shaping up to be the most outdated roster that a game has seen, though the delay will now allow 2K and Visual Concepts to adjust accordingly. Other issues have revolved around WWE being more hands-on following the dismal performance of WWE 2K20. The latest release of WWE's yearly series 2K20 critically and commercially was unsuccessful, noted for numerous technical issues and bugs. The failure of 2K20 prompted both parties to skip over WWE 2K21 in favor of this game, with WWE putting a lot of pressure forward for a better game with WWE 2K22. Sources also told Sports Game Online that WWE had openly floated the idea of working with other developers and publishers going forward, which many at 2K and Visual Concept viewed as a threat. Combined with everything else, this has led to many at Visual Concepts expressing frustration, with one source saying it was not a fun place to be, filled with second-guessing and desperation. Just sounds like WWE in general then, not a fun place to be with second-guessing and desperation. The irony that WWE is upset with 2K that the game is delayed, but in reality, the game is delayed because they released most of their roster. I think if you look at it all together, that's WWE's fault. That's not the video game's fault. If the video game developers are saying it would have been out later this year, but you released most of the people that will be in the game, and it takes a lot of time for us to fix that. You know, it's that. Whose fault is that? That's WWE's. So, look, I know that I'm not an AEW mark or an AEW shill. What I will say is AEW's taken a lot of time on this game, and I think they realize with how bad WWE 2K20 was, and now this error or this delay in this game, that they have an opportunity to really corner that wrestling video game market. If they come up with a great game, which they're spending a lot of time and money on, people will ultimately compare it with WWE, and it just takes for people within the video game circle to say that AEW game is far better. It's a win for AEW. So that's just a fascinating story. I wouldn't be surprised if this whole 2K deal with WWE just goes down the tube and eventually they go somewhere else. Where they'll go, I'm not a video game expert, so time will only tell. But look, guys, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on these WWE news stories you've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Got the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.